Okay, so let's quickly review what we had seen. So we first saw how to create a delegate. So delegate is like a function pointer. It holds the address of the function, and that delegate is given to the event, or we can say it is attached or registered with the event. So when the particular event occurs, that is where it will call the specified delegate. So like for example, there is an event called as button click event. So when somebody clicks on the button, then which method should be called? So that method we are attaching to the event, so that the event knows, okay, when the event has happened, then I will go ahead and call the particular delegate. Understood, everyone? So that was the event delegate concept. After that, we started off with multi-threading. So I was explaining you that in our operating system, means in our system, basically all the programs are present on the heap, on the hard disk initially. When you start running the application, so this is our suppose hard disk, and on the hard disk initially, all our applications will be present here. So when you say, okay, now I want to run my application, so then the particular application will be shifted. First of all, there will be the operating system. So here we have the OS loaded into the RAM. This is our hard disk. Okay, so this may be program P1, P2, and P3 and so on. Now we want to run this P1. So P1 will then be loaded from the hard disk into the RAM. So here P1 is loaded. When a particular program is loaded from the hard disk to the RAM, it becomes a process. It is termed as process. So we are going to have multiple processes here. So this is actually known as multi-programming. Okay? Because when the CPU is assigned to this process, after executing a couple of instructions, the process may be busy for do some IO operation. CPU becomes idle. So CPU will then be asked, okay, you go ahead and start working on P2 and so on. So we might have multiple programs that will be present on the RAM for execution by the CPU. That is called as multi-programming. Now, when we focus on a particular program, one program at a time, when we check, that is a process. Within a process, we might have different activities, or we can say methods. Activity means methods. So there is an activity A1 here, A2 here, A3 here. So this is one activity, this is another activity, this is the next activity. When CPU is assigned to this process, CPU is right now running maybe activity A1. Now A1 wants to do some IO operation, because of which the entire process may be paused and the CPU might be assigned to someone else. So we will say, no, no, we don't want to do that. Right now we have the CPU, right? My A1 is busy, na? So CPU, why don't you come and start running A2? If A2 becomes busy, we will start working with A3. और we may have something टाइम शेयरिंग जैसा, इसको 1 सेकेंड के लिए दे दो, फिर इसको 1 सेकेंड, फिर इसको 1 सेकेंड, लाइक दिस वी मे ऑल्सो हैव. So A1 will be running, A2 will be running, A3 will be running in parallel. And I hope you can understand or visualize CPU is an extremely fast device. तो ये CPU इसको 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 रन करके वापस भी आ जाएगा और आपको पता भी नहीं चलेगा. It is that fast. So we get an illusion that continuously A1 is running. हमारा ब्रेन कैसे काम करता है बताओ? अभी तुम मेरा लेक्चर सुन रहे हो, साथ ही साथ नोट्स भी निकाल रहे होगे, साथ में हो सकता है कुछ और भी काम कर रहे होगे. हो सकता है, राइट? सो यू माइट बी वर्किंग ऑन 2-3 थिंग्स एट द सेम टाइम. सो ब्रेन तो एक ही है ना? वी हैव वन ब्रेन, राइट? So I am also teaching you, right? When I am teaching you, I am also observing the chat box. I am drawing the diagram over here, and I am typing also sometimes. I am talking also. So 3-4 activities I am also doing. But brain is only one. So actually brain can do only one task at a time. So when I am reading from the chat box, that is sending a signal to my message, and I am speaking also. So brain, switches so fast that you might feel कि मैम तो बहुत सारा चीज एक साथ कर रही है. But actually I am doing one task at a time. That is also multi-threading in real life. Understood? होता है ना, ड्राइव करते हो आप लोग, गाना भी सुनते रहते हो, कई लोग तो मोबाइल भी देखते हैं. एक लड़की तो मैंने देखा व्हाट्सएप मैसेज चेक कर रही थी, 2 व्हीलर चला रही थी. I was really amazed. ऐसे भी करते हैं लोग. So that is also multi-threading. So don't do that. Please don't experiment that. I request you all. Don't check your WhatsApp messages while driving. ठीक है? You can do that later. बात करना तो कॉमन देखा था, बट ये व्हाट्सएप मैसेज चेक करना वाज अ लिटिल बिट न्यू फॉर मी. सो आई वाज रियली सरप्राइज्ड. Okay, so everyone understood the concept here. When the CPU is assigned, some part is executed here, switch, some part execute here, switch, some part execute here. So अगर ध्यान से देखा जाए, so it is somewhere running in sequence only. ये ऐसा चलता है देखो. It goes like this. So it is like false parallelism. हमें लगता है कि ये पैरेलल है, बट इट इज नॉट एक्चुअली द पैरेलल टास्क. दिस व्हेन दिस पार्ट इज रनिंग, दिस आर पॉज्ड. फिर जब ये चलेगा ये दोनों पॉज होंगे, ये चलेगा तो ये दोनों पॉज हो जाएंगे. इज इट क्लियर एवरीबडी? You all are understanding this one? Till now we never spoke about multi-threading, but even though we do not, so what I told you one more point yesterday, that when we have a program, right, my program has got a set of instructions. These instructions we are giving to the CPU one by one. So this sequence of instruction is actually called as a thread, correct? So execution path for the CPU is known as thread. Till now we never spoke about multi-threading, but the execution path is always there. हमारा program तो फिर भी run हो रहा था ना. So there is an execution path for the CPU. So even if we don't speak about the thread, one thread is always present. Let's call this as a main thread. एक thread होता है जो हमेशा रहता ही है हमारे application में. So till now the application that we have created, it is called as a single threaded application. Okay, अभी तक एक ही thread था. Now we want to go ahead and create multiple threads because we want to have a better user experience. होता है ना, अभी जैसे हम Visual Studio में टाइप कर रहे हैं. So when I am typing, then only it is coming up with the intelligence. So उसका importance है ना. So I am happy with this editor, right? It is telling me so many things. I am typing. It is not asking me to stop typing. It is giving me the help when I am typing. So both the things are running in parallel. That is what is multi-threading. Okay. Now we want to use threading. So the namespace that we will use is using system.threading. That is the namespace we have to use. So now what we will do is we will perform a task, and first we will see without multi-threading how it is going to happen. Okay, let me just change this name, rename to so here I have another class that is a worker class, public static let me have a method called as do work. And here I'm having one string. I'm using a string data type. So directly you can use string keyword to create the string data type. So I've just assigned some value, that is FirstBit solutions. For each char ch, we use character data type in data. Now here I'm not using write line, but I will use write because I don't want it to come in the new line all the time. So ch, we are going to print. If, say, 1 minute, अगर हम इसको रन करते हैं, so here I create worker object and w dot do work method is there. If I directly run this program, you can see immediately it showed me the output FirstBit solutions. But what was my intention? I wanted to display character by character, but it is not even noticeable, right? So what we can use it here is we can write thread dot sleep. We are telling this thread to sleep for some time. So let's use 500 milliseconds. 1000 millisecond is 1 second. तो हम क्या बोल रहे हैं, करंट थ्रेड को बोल रहे हैं कि तुम थोड़ी देर पॉज हो जाओ, रुक जाओ, स्लीप. स्लीप मीन्स डोंट डू एनीथिंग फॉर 500 milliseconds. दैट मीन्स हाफ सेकेंड. हाफ सेकेंड के लिए रुक जाओ. लेट मी एग्जीक्यूट दिस प्रोग्राम अगेन. Can you see the difference now? It is taking a pause while printing the data. ठीक है, क्लियर है सबको? This program everybody is understanding. We have a simple string over here. We are displaying it character by character. Here I have used right because I wanted them to be printed in the same line. So I'm not using right line over here. And then we are using thread dot sleep. So what this thread dot sleep will do? Make the current thread sleep or pause for half second. 500 मिलीसेकंड मतलब हाफ सेकेंड होता है, ठीक है, आधे सेकेंड के लिए वो रुक जाएगा. नाउ इफ आई कॉल दिस मेथड अगेन, so 2 times I am calling the same method. So if you observe this, normally देखो अभी मैंने 2 मेथड कॉल किए. When my first method will be over, then only the second method will be called. If the first method is not complete, it cannot jump to the second method, correct? And in this case we have written here thread dot sleep. Thread dot sleep मतलब रुक जाओ, कुछ मत करो. So don't you think that the CPU is not going to do anything for 500 milliseconds? If CPU has arrived here, it is executing this code and we are asking the CPU don't do anything for 500 seconds, 500 milliseconds, correct? And the 500 millisecond for the CPU is a very big amount. Agreed? तो आपको नहीं लगता we are wasting the CPU time in this scenario? So what if I want to perform the 2 tasks but we want to do them in parallel? एक काम करती हूँ मैं. Let me have this method again. This is do work 1 and this is do work 2. So here let me have Microsoft Solutions. ऐसा कुछ एक नाम दे दिया हमने. So now I am going to have 1 and 2. As of now they are running one by one. So the first task will complete, then only the second task will begin. That is the limitation that we have right now. Now Microsoft will start. So we don't want this. We want the 2 things to run in parallel. Why it is executing one by one? Because there is only one thread. So that thread will pick up the first instruction, then the second instruction, and then the next instruction, and so on. That is why one by one execution we are getting. But now what we want to do, we want to have parallel execution. So what we can do is, then we will have to create a thread. So for creating, abhi thread kya karega? What is the purpose of the thread? Thread is going to create a new execution path for the CPU. Okay. अभी मैंने आपको क्या बताया? Even do not create a thread, then also there is one thread already present that is called as a main thread. Now what we have to do, we have to create another thread, that is suppose T1. I have to create a new thread and I have to say CPU should also execute this thread. If you want to create a new execution path, For this execution path, you have to assign task to this thread. ये जो thread बन रहा है, ये किस काम को करेगा? Which activity it will perform? That you have to specify. Are you understanding what I'm saying? See, main knows, main is executing one by one the instruction. You are saying you will create another execution path. पर वो नया execution path, what that execution path will do, क्या करेगा वो भी बताना होगा. So you have to assign a task to this thread T1. You have to assign a task. Task मतलब क्या? Method. So you are assigning a method to this thread. How do you assign a method to somebody? मुझे ये मेथड मतलब मुझे थ्रेड T1 को बताना है कि तुमको ये काम करना है. So how to do that? Which concept can we use here? Can I say I am attaching? Very good. We are going to use the delegate. Everybody is understanding? ये जो thread T1 है ना, thread T1 क्या करेगा? It is a new execution channel. It has to execute, it has to perform some task. वो जो टास्क है वो मुझे उसको बताना पड़ेगा ना, कौन सा टास्क परफॉर्म करना है. मेरे पास तो बहुत सारे मेथड हैं, एक्स वाई जेड एंड सो ऑन. which task this thread T1 will perform? We have to attach that method to this thread. So how to attach method to something? We use the delegate concept. That is the importance of delegate. Understood everybody? Manoj, Shruti, Sanju, Gyaneshwar, everybody is getting it? Shweta, ठीक है? So here we have a built-in delegate that is called as a one of the thread. One of the delegate we have is a thread start delegate. TS is equal to new thread start delegate. If you observe this delegate signature, can you see what is there written there? Void and simple bracket. मतलब उसमें parameter list भी नहीं चाहिए, return type भी नहीं चाहिए. So when I use this method, ये देखो डू वर्क मेथड हमने बनाया था. सी द सिग्नेचर ऑफ डू वर्क वन मेथड. रिटर्न टाइप इज वॉइड, पैरामीटर लिस्ट इज एम्प्टी, द सिग्नेचर इज मैचिंग. ये बिल्ट इन डेलीगेट है, पहले से बना हुआ डेलीगेट है, वही हम यूज कर रहे हैं. सो थ्रेड स्टार्ट डेलीगेट ts is equal to new thread start and we passed the address of the method. Don't use simple bracket, that becomes the address of the method, correct? So w dot do work 1 is the method that we are providing to this thread start delegate. That is step number 1. Step number 1 is to create the delegate. What is the next step? Create a thread. So how to create a thread? Thread T1 is equal to new thread. And here you have to pass the delegate, that is TS. मतलब हमने थ्रेड बनाया और उसको ये डेलीगेट दे दिया, तो उसको पता चलेगा कि मुझे w डॉट डू वर्क को कॉल करना है. नेक्स्ट स्टेप इट इज शोइंग मी द इंटेलिजेंसी t1 डॉट स्टार्ट. So t1 dot start means run the thread. So we are ready to execute. CPU को बोला अभी हम तैयार हैं भाई, अब आप हमको भी उठा लो. So now the CPU can switch between the main thread and the child thread. This thread that we have newly created, we call this as child thread. जो पहले से बना हुआ है वो तो एक thread रहेगा ही. That is the main thread, right? And after that we have created another thread that is a child thread. ठीक है? Now let's execute this code and see the output. Sorry, so thread T1 will execute this task and see what I am also writing, w dot do work 2. इसके सामने thread नहीं लिखा है, तो who will execute this task? w dot do work 1, we gave it to T1, right? So T1 will be performing. Very good. So this task will be performed by the main thread. जो पहले से था वही उसको रन करेगा. All the instructions will be executed by the main thread. Only one thread we have created, that is T1, and T1 is going to execute which one? Do work 1. So do work 2. Can you see the output everybody? आउटपुट समझ में आ रहा है आपको क्या हो रहा है? What is happening in this case? Can we say both the threads are running in parallel now? Okay. That is what is multi-threading. So when we execute it, now earlier the output that you saw, I think M was first and here F is first. 1 minute, let me execute it again. अभी F पहले आया, M बाद में आया. अभी ऐसे आ रहा है. अभी M भी पहले आ सकते हैं, कोई जरूरी नहीं. We cannot control the sequence in which the thread will be executed. Okay, so that is internally managed by CLR. So before we proceed, everybody okay with this example? ये example समझ में आया आपको? If we do not create thread, still one thread is already there that is actually performing all the tasks. Now we have created a thread. So for that we have to use the thread start delegate. We pass the, so thread is like event and we call thread start, which we call delegate assigned to it. Correct. Thread start is an event. T1 dot start is an event. Okay. So when this event occurs, it is going to call the particular delegate that was assigned to it. So creating a thread, अच्छा इसको memory level पे भी हम देख लेते हैं. So what have we done here? We had a method over here that is do work one. That is one of the methods that we have. Then we have do work two. That is another method we have. So when we create the delegate, what we did? So TS is the thread start delegate. And we whatever, suppose this address is 100. So this 100 address we are having here. समझ में आ रहा है? This sorry, address level पे एक minute. Butterfly. See, we wrote thread start TS is equal to new thread start. So here the object of thread start delegate is created. यहाँ पर एक object बना, उसके पास address दिया हमने function का. तो ये ऐसा होगा, समझ में आ रहा है? It will look like this. ये TS है ना, TS क्या है? Delegate का object है. तो वो object कहाँ बनेगा? Heap में बनेगा. It stores the address of do work, so it is pointing like this. ये समझ में आ रहा है? Then we have thread T1 separately. So T1 एक दूसरा object है. So 300. It is pointing to this object. उसके पास thread start delegate. ये वाला address इसके पास रहेगा. It is like this. Sorry, 400. हाँ. The thread start delegate दिया है तो वो actually इसको ऐसे attach होता है. Like this. It is pointing, holding the reference of thread start delegate. So when you write T1 dot start, what it does, it invokes the thread start delegate, which is then going to perform the do work operation like this. So T1 dot start is something which is actually the event. जो task होता है, जो action perform होता है, that is the event. Understood? So creating the object is just allocating the memory. अगर आप thread T1 is equal to new thread लिख के छोड़ दो, तो कुछ नहीं होगा ना, nothing will happen. When you actually call T1 dot start, that is where the thread will start executing. Understood everybody? यहाँ तक क्लियर है सबको? Now we have one more variation to this. Now thread start delegate has a limitation that it does not accept any parameters. So we will now, there will be a scenario where we will have to pass parameters as well. So let's go ahead and define a method, public void do work. And here, let me have string data as a parameter. So here we are going to pass the parameters. So there is a do work method where I'm passing the string, that is some data we are passing, and we are performing the operation like this. Is it clear? ये मेथड क्लियर है आपको? इससे और इसमें डिफरेंस है ना, यहाँ पे कोई पैरामीटर नहीं है, यहाँ पे हमने पैरामीटर पास किया है. नाउ कमिंग बैक टू program.cs. Now, this time we are going to use another delegate. The name of the delegate is parameterized thread start delegate. Okay. So to this, what we are going to pass is w dot do work. एरर क्यों दिखा रहा है? एक मिनट. नो ओवरलोड मैचेस. ठीक है, देखते हैं. नो ओवरलोड फॉर डू वर्क. डेलीगेट मैचेस पैरामीटराइज थ्रेड स्टार्ट. अच्छा हाँ, सॉरी. यहाँ पे हमने स्ट्रिंग लिया है, बट ये एक्चुअली इसको ना ऑब्जेक्ट चाहिए. इफ यू ऑब्जर्व दिस, कैन यू सी दिस? इट सेज void object. I hope you remember I told you every data type is inherited from object class. बताया था क्या मैंने? हाँ. तो यहाँ पर मुझे string नहीं लिखना पड़ेगा, मुझे यहाँ पर object लिखना पड़ेगा. So object means it will accept anything, right? You can pass integer, you can pass character, you can pass employee, you can pass company, कुछ भी pass कर सकते हैं. So now I am just going to do some typecasting here. String data चलेगा क्या? Is it clear everyone? As operator मैंने उस दिन डिस्कस किया था ना. We can use as for conversion, या फिर चलो ज़्यादा हमको कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है तो we can convert dot to string मेथड यूज कर सकते हैं हम लोग d के लिए. So I hope now the error is gone and now we will write t. हाँ, तो अभी ये जो मेथड है इसको पैरामीटर चाहिए. So when we write t1 dot start, जब हम t1 को स्टार्ट करेंगे उस समय वो मेथड कॉल होने वाला है. So this is the opportunity where you pass the data. So let me pass the data like this, and also I will call do work directly, and I will pass another set of information. So this task will be performed by thread T1 and this will be performed by thread main. Okay. एक को main thread call करेगा और एक को T1 thread call करेगा. So let's execute this task. Nullability of reference types and parameter doesn't match. Convert dot to string. So D as string. ऐसे चलेगा क्या? करने नहीं दे रहा है वो. अच्छा, डाउनकास्ट. कहाँ पे ब्रैकेट? Nullability of reference type D of void worker doesn't match the target deleted nullability attribute. Line number 31. 31 में ब्रैकेट किधर है? कर्ली ब्रैकेट एक मिस हो रहा है. I don't think so any bracket is missing. अच्छा अच्छा ये वाला क्या? Okay. Okay. Fine. So I hope you can see the output, everybody. Now the output is intermixed output. So this and this two are running in parallel. Got it, everyone? So these are the two options we have while creating the thread. Either you can use the thread start delegate, where void is the thing that you have to use. The second one is where the return type must be void and the other parameter has to be object. ठीक है, ये nullable का ना मैं थोड़ा देखती हूँ, शायद ना एक ऑप्शन है, कुछ तो क्वेश्चन मार्क हम लोग लिखते हैं. Does that suppress it? लेट मी जस्ट थोड़ा सा एक बार चेक करके मैं ये बताती हूँ nullability को कैसे सप्रेस करना है. So this much everybody has understood? Okay. Now there is another concept. Suppose I have created maybe 3-4 threads. Suppose मैंने T1 thread बनाया, T2 thread बनाया, T3 like this I have created, and already I have the main thread. So main thread's task might have finished earlier, whereas T1 task is running, T2 is also running, and maybe T3 is also running. So what do you think? Main खत्म हो गया. Main को जो भी task था that is over now. But T1 is running, T2 is running, and T3 is running. So what do you think? What should happen here? Should main terminate all of them, or what? What do you think? What is going to happen? You understood what I'm saying? हो सकता है ना? We assign some tasks to thread T1, thread T2, and T3. They are taking longer time as compared to the task which is being performed by main. So what is going to happen in this scenario? Yes, everyone. What do you think? What should happen in this case? You may just guess, right? क्या होना चाहिए तुम्हारे साथ? Continue T1, T2, T3. Okay. Even though main has finished, Manoj is saying that T1, T2, T3 should continue. Okay. Others? Ganeshwar, Shruti, Shweta. So let's check that. करके देखते हैं, है ना? So this T1 is performing a bigger task maybe, and here I have given a smaller task to. When I say this one, this is the main thread, right? So let's execute this one. What is happening now? What Manoj said, that is what is happening. What is happening? The main thread is waiting for the child thread to complete. Correct? That is what is happening. The main thread is waiting for the child thread to complete. That is what is happening. Continue T1. So we can say like this, right? जो main है ना, वो wait कर रहा है. Okay, so sometimes I want, uh, so basically when we talk about threads in C sharp, so threads are considered of two types. One is considered as a background thread, and the second type we have is a foreground thread. So background thread is something which runs in the background, and foreground thread is the one which may involve some user interaction. ठीक है? So foreground thread मतलब जो सामने आके बात करते हैं ना, so maybe some user interaction may be there with the background foreground thread, and these threads are running in the background. ये पीछे चल रहा है. So please understand that background thread is sometimes considered as kind of low priority, we can say. जो बैकग्राउंड थ्रेड होता है ना, उसको हम ऐसा मानते हैं कि उसका प्रायोरिटी इतना ज्यादा नहीं है, whereas the foreground thread are considered to be of high priority. So that is the reason when you create the thread, it is, we can check that 1 minute. So for a particular thread, we can just check when a thread is created. Let me just comment these two lines. अभी हम thread को run नहीं कर रहे हैं. If t1 dot, there is one property called as is background. Can you see this property? हम चेक कर रहे हैं कि क्या वो background thread है. I am background thread. Else I will say it is a foreground thread. So if I go ahead and execute this task, can you see the output here? It is telling us that it is a foreground thread. So whenever you create a thread, by default it is a foreground thread, and hence it is got a higher priority. So it doesn't terminate if the even if the main thread has terminated. Understood this point, everybody? So I'll keep this code for your reference, and I will create another code block. Now, what we will do is we will change. We will say t1 dot is background is equal to true. Sorry. What we are going to do? We are going to say t1. अभी क्या बन गया? Now we have made the t1 a background thread. So now let's execute and see the result. Main 2 already has. Got it? What happened? The moment we change it to background, क्या हो गया? जैसे ही main खत्म होगा, वो automatically child thread को terminate करेगा. Is that clear, everyone? So sometimes we might want some tasks to run in the background, but since they are background threads, we want them to terminate when our main application terminates. They should not be running in the background. ठीक है, ये समझ में आया सबको? Everybody okay with this? When you create the thread, by default it is a foreground thread, but if you want, you can change it to background and the behavior will change. Its priority will become low now. So when you terminate the main thread, automatically it will terminate. यहाँ तक सबको समझ में आ रहा है क्या? पहले मुझे बताओ, फिर हम आगे बढ़ेंगे. मैम थ्रेड बैक और फोरग्राउंड? मेन थ्रेड. आप बताओ मनोज, मेन थ्रेड क्या होगा? Thread dot, there is one attribute called as current thread dot is background. तो ये आउटपुट ट्रू या फॉल्स देगा। ठीक है, इसको मैं जरा कमेंट करती हूँ ताकि वो दूसरे आउटपुट के साथ मिंगल अप ना हो जाए। अंडरस्टूड मनोज? ठीक है, सो इफ यू वांट टू टॉक टू द मेन थ्रेड तो उसके लिए थ्रेड डॉट करेंट थ्रेड प्रॉपर्टी है और उस पे आप चेक कर सकते हो। तो करेंट थ्रेड इज अवर द मेन थ्रेड एज ऑफ नाउ। ओके, नाउ लेट्स से आई हैव 3-4 थ्रेड्स। हाँ, अभी एक और चीज है इसमें, दैट लेट मी जस्ट कॉपी दिस इज main 3. Now we saw that what is happening in this case, the moment the main thread is completing, immediately it is terminating the child thread. ठीक है, तो अब इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या होगा? हो सकता है कि मैं बोलूं कि नहीं बाबा, चाइल्ड थ्रेड इज सेइंग ओके मेन थ्रेड, you understood right what is happening here? The moment do work will finish, it will abruptly stop the child thread, correct? तो हम बोलना चाहते हैं कि चाइल्ड थ्रेड बोल रहा है मेन थ्रेड को कि अरे मेरे लिए 2 मिनट बस रुक जाओ, 2 मिनट रुको, 2 मिनट में मैं आऊं तो ठीक, नहीं तो तुम टर्मिनेट करो तो चलेगा। वी आर जस्ट ट्राइंग टू चेंज द स्टेटमेंट हियर। गॉट इट? अंडरस्टूड व्हाट आई एम सेइंग? लेट्स, the child thread will tell the main thread, please wait for me for 2 more minutes. If in 2 minutes I join, it is fine, otherwise you continue. So we can say t1 dot join and we can specify 2 minutes, 2 minutes देना है तो 2000 milliseconds देना पड़ेगा। Semicolon expected. Okay. So now if I execute, so it will wait for 2 seconds. अगर 2 सेकंड में आया तो ठीक, नहीं तो terminate. Just 1 minute. And suppose even though it is a background thread, we don't want to make it time bound. मुझे कहना है कि नहीं, भले मैं बैकग्राउंड थ्रेड हूँ फिर भी मैं इंपॉर्टेंट हूँ, तुम मेरे लिए पूरी तरह से रुको। सो डोंट गिव एनी पैरामीटर। हाँ, सॉरी सॉरी सॉरी, don't give any time bound here. So now if I execute, got it? अगर वो बैकग्राउंड थ्रेड है फिर भी आप चाहते हो कि वो मेन थ्रेड के लिए पूरी तरह से रुके, तो हमें क्या करना होगा? जस्ट राइट t1 डॉट ज्वाइन, डोंट गिव एनी टाइम बाउंड टू दैट। सो इट विल हैव टू, मेन थ्रेड विल बी वेटिंग फॉर द अदर थ्रेड टू ज्वाइन। ठीक है, ये समझ में आ रहा है सबको? सो व्हाट वी कैन डू इज, ये तो समझ में आया आपको कि ज्वाइन मेथड में हम दो ऑप्शंस है हमारे पास, यू डोंट पास एनी पैरामीटर और यू मे पास द टाइम हियर। सो सपोज आई पास 2000 हियर, तब मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा कि वो ज्वाइन हुआ या नहीं? दिस मेथड रिटर्न्स ट्रू और फॉल्स, so we can just put it inside an if block. So if it returns true, we can say join success, else join failed. समझ में आ रहा है? This method is going to return true if the join was successful, otherwise it will return false. So let's try this out. अभी फिलहाल तो 2 सेकंड में तो वो ज्वाइन नहीं कर पाएगा, तो फेल्ड ही आएगा आउटपुट। So you got the output as failed. Now let me increase the time here, और ये थोड़ा सा मैं इसको छोटा कर देती हूँ, and let me just increase it to maybe 6. Understood everyone? So this much I think so everybody has understood properly. Okay. Now let's move ahead with another concept that is known as thread synchronization. This is also a very important topic. Let's try and understand this concept. Let us say I have a task deposit and I have another task that is withdraw. So what exactly we are going to do in the deposit operation? The first step that we usually do is say read balance, right? जो बैलेंस है वो बैलेंस को रीड करो. अब डिपॉजिट करना है तो मे बी वी आर डिपॉजिटिंग सम अमाउंट, से डी अमाउंट वी आर डिपॉजिटिंग. विड्रॉ के केस में हम लोग let's say W amount we are withdrawing. So first we said read balance. Now what I will do? I will say balance is equal to balance plus D, and then I will have to say write balance. So when I say read balance and write balance, देखो कोई भी एप्लीकेशन होगा तो उसमें जनरली डेटा मे बी इन द डेटाबेस और इन सम फाइल द डेटा इज प्रेजेंट, करेक्ट. जैसे हमारा भी बैंक में अकाउंट है ना, तो मेरा जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है वो डेटाबेस में रहेगा. when I am performing some operation, the application will pull out the data from the database and then it will perform the operation. तो उसको हमने सिंपल वर्ड्स में लिख दिया कि रीड बैलेंस. तो जहां पे भी वो मेमोरी में है वहां से पहले रीड करो, मॉडिफाई द बैलेंस एंड गो अहेड एंड राइट द बैलेंस. सो मॉडिफाई द बैलेंस. Similar steps will be performed when you go for withdraw. So again, we will have to read the balance. Then we will say balance is equal to balance minus W, right balance. ठीक है, ये तीन स्टेप्स होंगे, इसमें भी तीन स्टेप, इसमें भी तीन स्टेप. So let's take an example and understand this. Let's assume that there is some balance initially. So the value for balance is, suppose, let's say 5,000. Okay, now we call the deposit operation. So this method, suppose this method is called, so read balance. तो सबसे पहले हमने read किया, क्या read किया हमने? 5,000. Then balance is equal to balance plus D. So let's say we are adding here 500. So that will make it 5,500. And we write it. So this will be overwritten by 5,500. That is the deposit operation. Then we go ahead with the withdrawal operation. तो withdrawal में क्या होगा? Read balance. तो हमने 5,500 read किया. Then we subtract it with the withdrawal amount. So let's say 1,000 I want to withdraw. तो इसमें क्या करना है? Minus 1,000 करना है. So that will be 4,500. Write it. So this will be modified to 4,500. So final answer is 4,500. This much everybody is okay? सिंपल. हमने पहले डिपॉजिट कॉल किया, बाद में हमने विड्रॉल को कॉल किया. सो दैट इज द आउटपुट आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग. नाउ दिस विल वर्क फाइन इफ इट्स अ सिंगल थ्रेडेड एप्लीकेशन, कि पहले डिपॉजिट का ऑपरेशन हुआ, बाद में विड्रॉल का ऑपरेशन हुआ, या पहले विड्रॉल का ऑपरेशन हुआ, बाद में विड्रॉल डिपॉजिट हुआ. दैट इज ऑल्सो फाइन. व्हाट इफ आई हैव टू थ्रेड्स, T1 एंड T2 वर्किंग टुगेदर? दो थ्रेड्स हैं, दोनों भी काम कर रहे हैं. So let's start it all over again with this assumption that now we are using multi-threading. तो again हमारे पास balance कितना है? 5,000 है. So let's say we are working with deposit. तो thread T1 है जो deposit पे काम कर रहा है. So read the balance. तो सबसे पहले हमने balance को read किया. तो कितना आ गया यहाँ पे? 5,000 आ गया. You are performing the deposit operation. तो deposit में हमने इसमें 500 add किया. What we got is 5,500. Now, before we could perform the right operation, the thread T2 started running. तो अब T2 चालू हो गया, तो T2 ने बैलेंस को रीड किया. So what T2 is running? T2 is reading 5,000. माइनस कितना करना है 1000, अब उसके पास कितना आ गया 4000. बिफोर आई कुड राइट इट, अगेन T1 गॉट द चांस, तो T1 जाएगा और इसको चेंज करेगा 5500 कर देगा. अब T2 की चांस आएगी और वो इसको मॉडिफाई करेगा और आंसर कितना आ जाएगा 4000. और वाइस वर्सा, कि अगर इसने पहले राइट किया, अगर ये पहले राइट करेगा तो 4000 राइट करेगा, एंड इफ दिस वन राइट्स इट विल राइट 5500. So in my final answer, I will have 4000 or I will have 5500, whereas the original answer is 4500. So neither this is correct nor this is correct. Are you understanding this problem, everybody? So what is the final output? That depends on the sequence in which it is now like a race going on. ये दोनों रेस कर रहे हैं, जो पहले लिख दिया, जो इसने लास्ट में लिखा वो जीत गया, ऐसा हो गया है ना. दिस इज नोन एज रेस कंडीशन. Means the final output depends on the sequence in which the instructions are being executed. Understood? किस सीक्वेंस में हम इंस्ट्रक्शंस को रन करते हैं, उसको हम उसके ऊपर आउटपुट डिपेंड करेगा. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज द रेस कंडीशन. So obviously this race condition is not good. We will not get the proper output. Everybody okay with this part? ये problem समझ में आ रहा है आपको? So we wanted to use multi-threading. We executed multi-threading, but then the output we don't know what it's going to be. तो हमको प्रॉब्लम फेस करना पड़ सकता है. प्रॉब्लम पहले तो बताओ, प्रॉब्लम समझ में आया क्या, तो सॉल्यूशन की तरफ जाएंगे. एवरीबॉडी अंडरस्टूड द प्रॉब्लम? मनोज, श्वेता, श्रुति हैज अंडरस्टूड. अभिजीत, संजू, रोहित, श्रेयस, ज्ञानेश्वर. ज्ञानेश्वर को नहीं समझ में आया प्रॉब्लम? अंडरस्टूड? यू ऑल हैव टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट. हाँ, जहाँ पे समझ में आया है तो ठीक, नहीं समझ में आया तो पूछना है. डू नॉट हेजिटेट प्लीज टू आस्क. क्लियर है ना प्रॉब्लम? समझ में आया? व्हेन वी आर यूजिंग मल्टी थ्रेडिंग. अच्छा ठीक है, चलो प्रॉब्लम समझ में आया. तो ये प्रॉब्लम क्यों हो रहा है? व्हाई दिस प्रॉब्लम हैज हैपेंड? बिकॉज वी यूज्ड मल्टी थ्रेडिंग, राइट? इसलिए प्रॉब्लम हो गया है ना. तो मल्टी थ्रेडिंग अच्छा नहीं है. वी शुड नॉट यूज मल्टी थ्रेडिंग. We should use one by one operation. Multi-threading is bad. That means, Manoj, when you want to do the banking transaction, you should wait till all 1000 people who have logged in before you, they should finish first, then your turn will come. Correct, Manoj? ऐसा होना चाहिए. If you don't use multi-threading, that what is the meaning? One by one होना चाहिए ना. तो वो लोग करेंगे तो मुझे रुकना चाहिए. When everybody finishes, that will take time and I will never be happy. So multi-threading improves users, what do you say, experience. हाँ, तो प्रॉब्लम क्या है? अभिजीत, लॉक की तो बात बाद में आएगी, बट प्रॉब्लम क्या है वो पहले समझो ना. व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम हियर? The problem here is that deposit and withdraw, they both are operating on the same data. दोनों को बैलेंस चाहिए. No, that is not the problem. That is the result. श्रुति, inconsistency हो रहा है. That is the problem, right? But why this happened? Because both are trying to operate the balance. दोनों balance को change करना चाहते हैं. That is the issue. That is going to cause the data inconsistency. So if I want to show it using the diagram, I have two threads. I have a thread T1, I have another thread T2. So this is thread T1, this is thread T2. This is the common data. In our case, it was the balance. So thread T1 is also touching the same data, thread T2 is also touching the same data, and they are operating on the data. इसने भी उसको ही राइट किया, उसी समय ये भी उसको रीड कर रहा है या राइट कर रहा है. That is where the problem of data inconsistency is happening. That is the problem. Understood? This problem is termed as critical section problem. So let's understand what is this critical section problem. When we are writing a program, like just now I took the example of deposit and withdrawal. This is one code we had. ये एक कोड था हमारे पास. Then this is another code I had. Besides this, I might have some other code as well. यहाँ पे मेरे पास और भी code हो सकता है. This was my deposit operation and this is my withdrawal operation. Correct है? As far as I'm reading the balance, there is no issue. But when I try to modify the balance, that is the part that is going to create a trouble. तो अगर हम इसको एक मिनट इसको मैं अलग लिखूं अगर, so there are two threads, right? ये एक thread है. This part is being executed by thread T1. This part is being executed by thread T2. अब मैंने जैसे बोला ये डिपॉजिट है विड्रॉ, जैसे हम लोग एटीएम जाते हैं. I am going to perform the deposit. But besides this, I might perform the login operation, I might check the balance and so on. मैं बहुत सारे और भी चीजें कर सकती हूँ ना. I might be doing multiple tasks here. Similarly here I will be doing some other task. ठीक है, हो सकता है. I might be doing multiple tasks here. But the problem area is this one, जिसके बारे में अपने को सोचना है या चिंता करनी है. That is this part. This is the portion which is trying to access the shared data. So this part of my code is known as critical section. ये जो part है हमारे code का which tries to access the shared data, it is known as critical section. Understood? Critical section मतलब समझ में आ रहा है? Critical section is the code. Which code? Which tries to access shared data. That is considered as a critical section. Everybody okay with this part? सबको समझ में आ रहा है? Critical section किसको बोलते हैं पहले वो समझ जाओ. The part which tries to access the shared resource or shared data is known as the critical section. So we need to only worry about the critical section. We need not worry about this entire code. पूरे के पूरे code के बारे में सोचना नहीं है, सिर्फ critical section के बारे में सोचना है. So the solution to this is, if the thread T1, अगर thread T1 अपने critical section में है, if thread T1 is executing in its critical section, at that time T2 should not enter into its critical section. मतलब इसको समझने के लिए एक रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल देती हूँ. लेट मी टेक एन एग्जांपल टू एक्सप्लेन दिस. सपोज दिस इज अ क्लासरूम. अभी मैं तुम्हारी क्लास ले रही हूँ ना, सो आई एम टेकिंग योर क्लास. So I am the trainer right now and I am taking your session. When I am taking your session, at the same time, can it happen that one more trainer start taking your session at the same time, unmute and start speaking and the person is also teaching? No, right? So when I am taking your session, the other person who wants to take the session should stop, should wait. When I complete, I will inform that person I am done. Now you can take the session. That is fine, correct? So can I say taking the session over here is a critical section problem? Because I also want to take the session, the other person also wants to take the session. That is the critical section now. So this part needs to be synchronized. Synchronized matlab one by one. So when I am in my critical section, other person should wait. When that person is in his critical section, I should wait. Are you understanding? So only this part, the critical section part, should be synchronized, or we can say it should be done in one by one. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just come back in 1 minute. Okay. Okay, everyone. So did you all understand the critical section problem? सबको ये concept समझ में आ रहा है? That whenever we have a task, wherever we have a code which is trying to access the shared data or shared resource, that is where the problem will occur. So we need to synchronize that part. Synchronize मतलब उसको हमें क्या करना होगा, एक के बाद एक करना होगा. तो वो अब कैसे करना है वो समझना है. इस पूरे एग्जाम्पल में शेयर्ड रिसोर्स कौन सा है? In this particular example, what is our shared resource? The balance, correct. So balance is our shared resource. तो जैसे सी 1 minute, ये है balance. This is balance. Maybe it is like, say, as I said, 5,000. This is our shared resource, which T1 also wants to access, T2 also wants to access. Suppose T1 reaches to this resource first. T1 को ये यहाँ ये पहले पहुंच गया. So what T1 will do? T1 will acquire a lock on this resource. T1 क्या करेगा? उस resource को ताला लगा देगा. Kind of something. Okay, so T1 has locked this resource. T1 बोलेगा मुझे जो करना है मुझे पहले कर लेने दो. सो डिपॉजिट कितना है, से 500, तो 5,500 उसने किया. देन इट विल रिलीज द लॉक. अब रिलीज कर दो लॉक को, तो लॉक छूट गया. सो सॉरी, एक मिनट. जब ये काम चल रहा है तो ये रिसोर्स लॉक है. when T2 comes in, T2 cannot perform the operation because the resource is locked. समझ रहे हो? अभी क्या हो रहा है, ये रिसोर्स क्या हो रहा है, लॉक्ड है. लॉक्ड है तो T2 यहाँ पर एक्सेस नहीं कर सकता. T2 will have to wait. When T1 is done, it will release the lock. Now T1 can enter into its critical section and it can perform, and T2 will now acquire the lock and perform the changes. Understood? So lock and release mechanism is used. So there is a built-in object that is called as monitor. We use monitor concept, monitor dot. अच्छा मैं वो करके दिखाती हूँ पहले तो. So let's create another class. So here I have written a simple code here, that there is a variable called as balance. Now this back operation नाम का एक क्लास हमने बनाया, अकाउंट भी हो सकता था. So we are going to have one constructor here which would initialize the value for the balance, and then there is a deposit operation जहाँ हमने balance को plus किया, and when we are performing the withdrawal. So these are the sections where I'm modifying the shared data, right? So this is our critical section. Now when we start running this application, if it is just a single statement, तो वो thread उसको करके बाहर भी आ जाएगा और हमको पता भी नहीं चलेगा. Means we won't be able to actually see the problem that we are discussing. So what we can do is, um, we can just implement thread dot sleep maybe, या तो कुछ और तरीके से करना पड़ेगा इसको. रुको. मैंने जानबूझ के 2-3 लाइन्स थोड़े से ऐड किए हैं ताकि वो स्विच हो, इधर से उधर जाए, ऐसा कुछ तो टास्क हो. समझ में आ रहा है ना? आई कुड हैव डन इट इन 1 लाइन आल्सो, बट वो डिफरेंस अपने को पता नहीं चलेगा. सीपीयू वर्क्स वेरी फास्ट, राइट? तो वो एक इंस्ट्रक्शन रन करके चला जाएगा तो हम उसको आउटपुट में देख नहीं पाएंगे. सो आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू इंक्रीज द स्टेप्स एंड इंक्रीज द टाइम ड्यूरेशन इट कंज्यूम्स टू परफॉर्म द टास्क. तो यहाँ पर बैलेंस मैंने जस्ट उसको बी में ट्रांसफर कर दिया. अब हम यहाँ पर माइनस कर रहे हैं बी को. माइनस like this. These are the tasks we are performing, and here we are going for show balance. Now let me go back to program.cs. This main 4. इधर भी डबल डेटा टाइप का प्रॉब्लम आएगा. ऑब्जेक्ट लिखना पड़ेगा. Okay, since we are going to use the parameterized thread start delegate, I have taken the parameter here as object data type. नहीं तो वो फिर से वो data type का mismatch error आएगा. Now, so here we will use bank operations BOP is equal to new bank operations, and I am passing 5,000 here. Now let's create a parameterized let's start delegate ts1 is equal to new BOP dot deposit. So these are the two delegates we have. Now thread T1 is equal to new thread. So TS1 thread T2 equal to new. Now T1 dot, when I say start, so first one is the deposit operation. So I'll be passing this one, and T2 dot start. And here I'll be passing maybe 1,000. Show balance. अब ये क्या होगा, ये दोनों थ्रेड स्टार्ट तो हो गए, स्टार्ट होके कब खत्म हुए ये तो मुझे पता नहीं चलेगा. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दिस लाइन एवरीबडी. अभी क्या होगा, हमने दो थ्रेड्स क्रिएट किए. सो T1 इज ऑल्सो रनिंग, T2 इज ऑल्सो रनिंग, एंड ऑल्सो आई होप यू नो मेन थ्रेड इज ऑल्सो रनिंग. तो अभी तीन थ्रेड्स लाइन से चल रहे हैं. सो व्हेन आई से शो बैलेंस, ये जो शो बैलेंस आएगा ना, ये मुझे पता नहीं ये कब रन होगा. मतलब ये डिपॉजिट के बाद होगा कि इसके बाद होगा कि कब होगा. दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम. So I want that T1 should also complete, T2 should also complete, then only you show me the balance. Are you getting this? बिना उनको कंप्लीट किए मुझे बैलेंस मत शो करो, बीच का बैलेंस मुझे नहीं चाहिए. सो वी आर गोइंग टू राइट T1 डॉट ज्वाइन. याद है ना ज्वाइन मेथड. सो वी वांट टू मेक श्योर दैट दे कंप्लीट फर्स्ट. तो यहाँ पर हम इंश्योर कर रहे हैं कि T1 और T2 कंप्लीट हो चुके हैं और फिर हम बैलेंस शो कर रहे हैं. सो लेट मी रन दिस प्रोग्राम. अनहैंडल कास्ट इंटीजर कहाँ पे गड़बड़ हो गई. अच्छा, ये फाइल. अच्छा, ये इंटीजर पास किया इसलिए. What output you are observing? Is it correct output? No. फिर से 4,000 ही आया. 4,000 ही देगा शायद वो हर बार. डिपॉजिट किया 5,000 ना, 5,500. हमेशा 4,000 ही क्यों आ रहा है. इसको सीक्वेंस को चेंज करूं क्या. हाँ. कैन यू सी दिस. अर्लियर इट वाज शोइंग 4,000, नाउ इट इज शोइंग मी 5,500. ऐसे ये जितने बार आप रन करोगे उतने बार आपको अलग आउटपुट आएगा, आने की पॉसिबिलिटी है. बट मेनी टाइम्स वी हैव टू ट्राई. But I hope you understood, right? That the data is being inconsistent here. The problem is we are able to visualize the problem now. Everybody okay with the problem here? So the problem is happening because we have a shared resource and both are trying to access the shared resource and we cannot control that. So that is where anybody is trying to modify it at any given point of time. So what do? We go to this section. So this is our critical section we discussed, right? तो इसके ऊपर अभी हमें क्या करना होगा. We have to use monitor dot enter. This is one option we have. और वो जो ऑब्जेक्ट है जिसको हम चेंज कर रहे हैं, किसको चेंज कर रहे हैं, बैलेंस को. तो बैलेंस को लॉक करना है. एंड वंस वी आर डन, वी राइट मॉनिटर डॉट एग्जिट बैलेंस. समझ में आ रहा है. द शेयर्ड रिसोर्स इज बैलेंस, राइट. सो वी नीड टू अक्वायर द लॉक ऑन बैलेंस. तो जब ये लॉक हो जाएगा तो दूसरा वाला ऑटोमेटिक उसको रुकना ही पड़ेगा. देयर इज नो ऑप्शन. सो हियर ये भी पहले हो सकता था, इसलिए इसको भी हम लॉक और रिलीज करेंगे. मॉनिटर डॉट एंटर, मॉनिटर डॉट एग्जिट. सो एंटर करना मतलब अक्वायर द लॉक, acquire the lock, and this means release the lock. Got it? So let's execute it now. Unhandle exception. Object synchronization method. Someone unsynchronized block. एक मिनट. Requires an explicitly unspecified object. . And also please remember, when we are using multi-threading, at that time you cannot debug the application. Okay? क्योंकि ये रन टाइम पे होता है. So you cannot do debugging in this case. I'll just cross check on this part. Okay, somewhere maybe I'm doing a mistake, but I hope you understood the concept here. We use monitor.enter to acquire the lock and monitor.exit to release the lock. This much I think so everybody has understood. So we'll see this in tomorrow's session. Maybe I'm doing some mistake here. So I'll just correct that. All right. So let's stop here for today. We'll continue with this discussion in tomorrow's session. Okay.